D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you on a Monday afternoon. I hope you are having a wonderful Monday afternoon. Willie Donick will be joining us shortly. The Nashville Predators have touched down in Seattle, Washington, where they will take on the Kraken tomorrow night. So once Willie gets set up, he will join the program. And we've got a lot to discuss today. Free agency in the NFL, Derek Mason, does not officially begin until Wednesday. But let's not kid ourselves. Free agency in the NFL opened today.
Absolutely.
And as soon as the quote-unquote legal tampering period opened today at 11 a.m. Central, NFL GMs were shooting money out of one of those guns you see at the club, or at least that is what I assume, since I'm not cool enough to go to the club. And frankly,
do they shoot money out of the things at the club? I don't know.
You know, the rappers, they've got those guns that shoot the money in the air, right?
You've seen way too many music videos.
Exactly. You're watching too many music
That doesn't happen in real life?
I don't think they,
I don't think
they shoot money out of guns. No, I don't think. What you are explaining is when they make it rain and they kind of
they're making it rain.
Well, they just throw the money. Yes,
I think that's just in videos though.
Yes, videos. I'm sure they probably. I don't know if they still do it, but I'm sure in establishments like that it may go on, but not at a club. We're talking about another place, not at a club.
I mean, it is a kind of club.
Kind of, sort of, I guess.
A gentleman's club.
A gentleman's club.
There you go. Absolutely.
Club is in the name.
You're absolutely right.
I've watched too many music videos. People don't make music videos anymore. That's sad. But anyway,
yes,
I struggled to keep up with all of these reports because they were coming fast and furious. Here is just a sample of what happened early today in this legal tampering period. The Indianapolis Colts made Alec Pierce the highest paid free agent receiver in NFL history, according to Ian Rappaport. Then the Colts traded Michael Pittman to the Steelers. Malik Willis signed a 3-year, $67.5 million contract with the Miami Dolphins to replace Tua Tagovailoa, who's costing the Dolphins $99.2 million in dead cap space, which is an NFL record. So a lot of crazy stuff is happening. And we will talk about all of the crazy things around the NFL. But let's start with what the Titans did today, of course. Mm-hmm. Most notably, and as expected, the Titans signed wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson. Per Adam Schefter, Robinson gets a 4-year contract worth $78 million, including $38 million guaranteed. That's an average, by the way, of $19.5 million per year for Wan'Dale Robinson. They also signed Mitch Trubisky to be Cam Ward's backup, which more than likely spells the end of Will Levis's Titans career, if it wasn't over already. They brought in tight end Daniel Bellinger, who played for Brian Daboll in New York. And within the past hour, the Titans signed defensive tackle John Franklin Myers, who played for Robert Saleh in New York, and cornerback Alante Taylor. So that's a mouthful. Wan'Dale Robinson, Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Bellinger, John Franklin Myers, and Alante Taylor. Derek, we will dig into Robinson shortly because I gave you a homework assignment. I really want to focus in on Robinson today using your expertise. But what are your thoughts on what the Titans have done so far today?
I think they went out and they addressed specific needs that they have, whether it be corner, D-line, wide receiver, or backup quarterback. Now, I am a little surprised that they signed a backup quarterback this early. Maybe they thought, hey, listen, we need to get us somebody in here now before, that position starts to fill up.
I think that was the first deal that was announced
Yeah.
about the Titans was Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, so that kind of sort of surprised me that they got a deal done that early or that quickly with a backup quarterback. But the other positions, I think they went out and addressed. They needed a starting cornerback. They got one in Alante Taylor. They needed a slot guy. They got one in Wan'Dale Robinson, and they needed to address the defensive line. So I think I'm not integrating anything right now, but I think they did a good job at addressing certain positions via free agency.
Mark in Ashland City wants me to point out that the Tennessee Titans also signed cornerback Cordell Flott
Yes.
from the New York Giants. So my sincerest apologies to Cordell Flott and the family of Cordell Flott for not mentioning Cordell Flott, which is it's just a great name to say. I love saying it, Cordell Flott. So my bad, Cordell Flott. Also, people are siding with me. There are such things as money guns. Derek Mason.
Is there?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. See,
I mean,
I don't.
There is, but like,
look at this. Look at this.
I never saw a money gun in a club, though.
I'll have to show you.
Okay.
I'll have to show you. Well, I mean, when was the last time you were in the club, Derek Mason?
College days.
back in East Lansing.
Exactly.
Yes, that technology had yet to be developed back when Derek Mason was
you got
in
a
the
point
club.
there. You got a point there.
and look, I won't pretend to know everything about all of the players the Tennessee Titans signed today. Here's something that I did get a chuckle from. I bookmarked an article from over the weekend by Seth Walder of ESPN.com, where he ranked the most underrated and most overrated free agents in the NFL. So this was before all of the signings. Wan'Dale Robinson listed in the underrated section. That's good.
Yeah.
Alante Taylor listed in the overrated section. That's bad. So I won't pretend to know everything about all of these players. That's why we have Teron Davenport on the program, which we will have at 3:40 as he breaks down all of these signings. I do have a couple of questions, though, Derek Mason.
Yes.
Number one, what are the Titans going to do at center?
Gosh, I don't know.
Tyler Linderbaum. We talked a lot about Linderbaum.
He's going out to Vegas.
3 years, $81 million. The highest paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history, according to Adam Schefter. So Linderbaum off the board. A couple of other centers, McGovern from Buffalo. We talked about him last week, Connor McGovern with Trevor Maddich. He's gone. Is it Tyler Biadasz? He signed as well. So a lot of the top centers off the board. And the Titans sort of kind of need a center. So that's question number one. What are the Titans going to do at center?
Is there a possibility that they could sign Cushenberry back?
Why would you want to do that
to the smaller deal? That's one of the reasons. And then, okay, there will be centers cut pretty soon here. And a lot of it will be because of, or let's just say players. A lot of it will be because of salary cap reasons. Teams are trying to get under the cap, trying to move money around and sign free agents that they want. So there may be a center that has played well, but because of his number, he will end up, being released. So it's not just because Linderbaum and these other guys have signed. I don't think it really, does anything in regards to the Titans. Like they're panicking right now. I don't think they're panicking. I think they're addressing some other needs. Maybe they feel they had their guy in house. They could feel that way as well. So this free agency just started, and I expect them to go out and sign a center. If not today, possibly tomorrow.
Connor Hughes, who reports on the Jets and Giants for SNY up in New York. This is an interesting report. Quote, sources, Cordell Flott, there's that name again, was set to return to the Giants. It was as done of a deal as you can get without pen to paper. As last-second attempt to get him to change his mind, the Titans put forth their entire plan to how Robert Saleh planned to use him and what they believed he could accomplish in this defense. That was the difference. Flott doesn't return to the Giants. He instead heads to Nashville with teammates Wan'Dale Robinson and Daniel Bellinger. So apparently the Titans with a full court press at the 11th hour. They really wanted some Cordell Flott.
They're being aggressive, and, they see an opportunity where they can go out and get some veterans that have played either for Dabo or Saleh, guys that they know. So they go out and get them young enough that they can grow even more within the scheme that you are going to put them in. So again, this for me signifies that this team wants a jump start to this season. They want to make sure that as these young guys are developing, that they got people in there that knows whether it be the offense or the defense, because at least three of these guys have either, or four, have either played for Dabo or have played for Saleh.
Bellinger played for Dable. Robinson played for Dable.
Mm-hmm.
John Franklin Myers played for Robert Saleh.
Mm-hmm.
Mitch Trubisky overlapped with Daboll, I believe. Out of these signings, I think Alontae Taylor
Mm-hmm.
is the only player who does not have a prior history with either Robert Saleh or Brian Daboll.
Well, that tells you what they're doing. They can't afford to sit and wait on, the young guys to develop and solely wait on the young guys to develop. They got to have some veteran guys, and again, not older veteran guys, but veteran guys from the standpoint of they've been in the league 4, 5, 6 years. They've been, closely associated because they've been coached by Dabo or Saleh. So they want to get these guys and they want to help jumpstart this offense and defense, to whereas they're going to next season not hoping to win, but expecting to win.
Outside of the Titans, which reported deal made your eyes bulge out of your head? I mentioned Tyler Linderbaum apparently becoming the highest paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history. 3 years, $81 million with the Las Vegas Raiders. Jalen Phillips received a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Carolina Panthers. Alec Pierce, we talked a ton about Alec Pierce over the past few weeks. 4 years, I've seen 114 million, 116 million. Either way, he is, I believe, now in the top 10 in wide receivers by annual average value, which I would not have anticipated. But any of these deals just make you go, wow.
I think all of them, really.
Well, yeah, that's what happens in free agency.
Yeah, but the Lindenbaum or Braum.
Linderbaum. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
Linderbaum.
Linderbaum. It's surprising from the standpoint it's such a short contract, and it's basically you're guaranteeing it all. Really. That's what, like, the Vegas Raiders just jumped so far ahead of everybody, I believe, as far as what they were offering. Everybody was just like, you know what? We ain't gonna even touch it. So that kind of surprised me, because when you have a running back that you draft in the top 5, you do want to get him somebody that can block for him. And in Vegas, their offensive line wasn't the greatest last year. So they go out and they get a centerpiece in their, no pun intended.
No pun intended.
In their center. So I can understand why, but why for such a short amount of time? If you want him, because he's young. It's not like he's 32 years old. He's young. Tyler's young. This is his first contract.
He's about to turn 26.
Exactly. So why would you sign him? And maybe his camp was like, we ain't signing nothing over a 3-year deal. So I can understand that. But they jumped so far out there that, the free agents next year at that position, they're saying thank you.
Well, they also now have a center for their presumed number 1 overall pick.
Exactly.
Fernando Mendoza.
So you have your center, you have your quarterback, and you have your running back. So I guess all 3 of those align. So that the number in the amount of years surprised me from that standpoint. But then the Alec Pierce, I think that one really surprised me.
Kind of nuts.
But listen, Indy knows him better than anyone. They drafted him, they developed him, and now they're going to pay him. That's ultimately what you want to do as a franchise. But I was really surprised by a guy that doesn't get as much action, meaning he doesn't catch a lot of balls. And you are paying him as a top. You're paying him number one receiver money.
So
and he's not your number one receiver.
Alec Pierce, according to Spot Track, his annual average value is $28.5 million.
Mhm.
Here are the receivers making more per season than Alec Pierce now. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins. That's it. End of list.
Only person you would say he was better than is Ayuk, because Ayuk is not playing.
Right.
So, but again, it's not necessarily a lot of times. It's not necessarily about, how good you may be compared to. It's when your contract is up and what else is out there. You had a big year from the standpoint of yards per average and touchdowns, I believe. And it just so happened it was your contract year and you're the top free agent wide receiver out there. So you're going to automatically get an increase.
Some breaking news in the NFL, not Titans related. The Commanders are signing free agent pass rusher Odafe Owe. So the former Charger star going to Washington. Boye Mafe signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. So there's that. We will keep you apprised of everything that's happening around the NFL as it relates to the Titans, of course. 615-737-1025. Your reaction to what the Titans have done so far in free agency. They bring in Wan'Dale Robinson. They bring in Daniel Bellinger, Alante Taylor, so on and so forth. Your reaction to what the Titans have done so far in free agency. Do you like it? Are you concerned with the remaining holes on the roster? Any players still out there you want the Titans to go after? 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. It is a Reaction Monday. We are reacting to NFL free agency, and Reaction Mondays are brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Right Time HVAC and Cromwell Media are teaming up to bring comfort back to your home. Is your heating system struggling or completely out of commission following the winter storms, or do you need a fix to get ready for summer? Nominate yourself for the Right Time Home Rescue and tell us your story. Enter today at theGameNashville.com/HVAC, and you could win a new HVAC system installed by Right Time HVAC. Locally owned and operated. There's never a wrong time to call Right Time. Also, be listening. I'll tell you when precisely, not yet though. Be listening because we have a pair of tickets to give away to see Nashville SC take on Lionel Messi in Inter Miami at Geodis Park on Wednesday night. That's a hard ticket to come by with Messi coming to town. So if you want a pair of tickets to see Nashville SC face Inter Miami at Geodis Park on Wednesday night, be listening. I will give you the cue to call in just a little bit. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, taking your reaction to the Titans so far in free agency, although it isn't officially free agency until Wednesday. We all know that free agency started today. I got a kick out of this, Derek.
Yes.
11 a.m. Central is when the legal tampering period opened. At 11 o'clock and 3 seconds, Adam Schefter posted that Alec Pierce had re-signed with the Indianapolis Colts. So let's not kid ourselves, guys. We know that these deals have already been consummated. Yes. We just have to wait until Wednesday for them to become official. We bring in Willie Donick, who is live in Seattle, where the Predators will take on the Kraken tomorrow night. Hello, Willie. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Good to talk to you.
From the beautiful Pacific Northwest, yes.
Man, how is it in Seattle, man? How is it?
Not bad. It's breezy, not raining. Anytime it's not raining in Seattle is a bonus.
There we go.
Would you say you're sleepless?
In Seattle.
At the moment, based on all the travel we've been doing here, I right now, not sleepless. But by the end of this road trip, I think that might fit the bill.
So, Willie, your reaction to the moves that the Titans have made so far: Wan'Dale Robinson, Alontae Taylor, John Franklin Myers, Daniel Bellinger, Mitch Trubisky as backup quarterback. The list goes on. Your initial reaction to what the Titans have done so far today?
Not super surprised. I think it's an illustration of how many holes the team felt like they still had on the roster. And it's another byproduct of 5 years, 3 in particular, but really 5 total, where you didn't get a whole lot drafting. And so there's only a couple ways to make up for it. And I don't think it's something that they'd like to do. But I feel like they didn't think they had a choice. So it was expensive. And probably I would say the Trubisky one surprised me the most. I don't know about you guys, but I really was thinking that they might roll with Will Levis as the unquestioned backup. Now we all wonder what's going on.
Well, I was surprised from the standpoint of Willie that it happened so quickly.
If I recall correctly, it was the first deal that was reported regarding the Titans.
Yeah. That's why I'm surprised by it. I'm not at all, because I've been in the camp of Will Levis needs another opportunity somewhere else. He wants to be a starting quarterback, and he's not going to get that opportunity here. So let him trade him somewhere, get some for him, and let him start his career over again. But it seemed like the Titans, they are thinking about this. That's like at the forefront. So they wanted to sign a capable backup quarterback very quickly.
I would agree with that. And one texter points out, just to clarify something, Mitch Trubisky made a pit stop in Buffalo in 2021 when Daboll was still there. Okay. So although Trubisky was back with the Bills most recently, when Daboll, of course, was with the Giants and then fired, Trubisky made a quick stop in Buffalo when Daboll was the offensive coordinator. So there is some overlap, small overlap, but overlap nonetheless. Now, Derek, because everybody and their mother expected the Tennessee Titans to sign Wan'Dale Robinson from the New York Giants at wide receiver, I tasked you with doing some study on Wan'Dale Robinson. And this is the perfect blend of my expertise, being a big old nerd, and Derek's expertise of actually playing the sport of football at a high level and playing wide receiver. So this is where the two blend. So I did some research on Wandale Robinson, and I found some really interesting stuff. Here's the first thing that I found that was really interesting to me.
Mhm.
In 2025 and 2024, he basically had the same workload. In 2025, so this past season, 92 receptions on 140 targets. The year before, 93 receptions on 140 targets. So basically the same workload. This past season, 2025, he averaged 11 yards per reception, up from 7.5 in 2024. His air yards per target in 2025, 8.7, up from 4.9 the previous year. So Wandale Robinson showed last season in New York that he could stretch the field a little bit. He is primarily a slot receiver,
Mhm.
but the injury to Malik Neighbors meant that Wandale Robinson took on a different role.
Yes.
In 2025, he played 56.3% of his snaps from the slot, according to Pro Football Focus. That is down from 77.8% in 2024, a steep drop in the percentage of snaps from the slot. So to me, when I just look at the numbers, I see a slot receiver who can be more than a slot receiver. But then you want to add in the context of what that means once you actually watch the film.
Yeah, because it may say one thing, but then when you're actually watching the game, that's why a lot of the numbers are great, but when you're talking about this, you got to match the numbers with what actually you're looking at and how they get to it. When they say, well, he's played X amount of percentages of plays outside, he can be it's sort of misleading because a lot of this is about motioning, getting matchups, trying to figure out whether it's zone or man. So he may start out in a 2x2 as the slot guy, but then they're trying to figure out coverage or they're trying to get a matchup they want. So they motion the Z down into a zap or a zip motion, which now puts him on the outside. He didn't necessarily line up there, but because of the splits, you can manipulate things. Because of the motion, now it puts him outside. Now they get the coverage they believe they want in order to run the pass route that is going to get Wandale Robinson open. So I think a lot of that is manipulation with the motion because he is not a outside receiver. Never has been. Even watching film of him in Kentucky, he wasn't an outside guy.
He stands at 5'8" and weighs 185 pounds.
He's a player in this league. He's a good player in this league. I'm never gonna say he's not. He's a good player in this league. He's made a name for himself that parlayed into him getting a big contract. But, and I hate to say but I would have thought, what did we complain about with Cam Ward at the beginning? The inaccuracies, the not being accurate enough, especially down the field and stuff like that. And I always say, how do you help a quarterback that is sort of feeling his way through the accuracy issue and whatnot? You get him bigger targets. What do you think? Why do you think they went and got Ted McMillan for Carolina Panthers? Because he's a bigger target. The quarterback can see him. What I'm afraid of is this: him being at 5'8", you're gonna have to do a lot of manipulation with the splits in order to get him a lot of space. Because if you just leave him out there after a while, teams are just gonna press him because he's a smaller guy. He's quick, but he's a smaller guy. And they're gonna start pushing him around. So what do? You got to motion him. You can't necessarily keep him stationary, or you got to put him off the ball with a 2x2 or a 3x1. So you're creating a formation that is going to get him open. Again, I think he's a good receiver, but how much have they upgraded that position with the signing of Wandale Robinson? We talked about this the other day. Maybe it's the floor that they are raising instead of the ceiling. The roof is the ceiling instead of the ceiling. So
the ceiling is the roof.
Yeah. So I think he will do well in his offense, but he's going to have to be a big feature. Like, he was a big feature of that offense
last
year,
after the injury to Malik Neighbors.
injuries to the Malik Neighbors. Can he, without a Malik Neighbors type of guy, will he still be the focal point of the passing game?
One texter says, I'm sorry, did you say 5'8", 165 pounds? 5'8", 185 pounds. So still, Willie, the question that I have for both of you, you can answer first. I wonder what this means for Calvin Ridley, because Derek, you tell me if I'm wrong, they're different receivers.
Oh, yeah.
So Robinson's not going to line up where Ridley lined up. So do you think this makes it more likely than not that Calvin Ridley sticks on the team?
Well, that's a really interesting question. In my mind, I just thought for sure that Ridley was going to be gone.
Me too.
And you know, I do a National League only baseball fantasy auction. So it's not a draft, it's an auction. And so I do this every year, and it's a group of guys that are really serious about this. And so you really have to know a budget. I'm curious about the Titans free agency budget at this point. They've gone out and bought all these guys. So in my experience in this baseball draft, there are guys that go out and blow all their money early in the auction, and then a couple hours into it, they have nothing else to spend. And if you're smart, you can outbid everybody. And so it strikes me here that they've gone. Now they had to plan this ahead of time. So when they did this, are they thinking that Ridley is still part of their budget with this? Or do these moves squeeze him out? Because Ridley was not released before, like so many players are in the league, right? So I wonder. And the other thing about Robinson I think is worth mentioning is, you know, the same amount of targets 2 years in a row, but he went from 699 yards, 7.5 yards per reception, right? He had about the same amount of receptions each year, 93 out of 140 2 years ago. 92 catches out of 140 targets last year, but he significantly raised his yards per catch. So we went from just under 700 yards to over 1,000 in a year. And I'm curious about what you guys just mentioned. Neighbors in the lineup, Neighbors out of the lineup. He had the same targets both years, but his role was different. As you said, D-Mates, I wonder if that is a good thing long term.
Yeah. First, let me address. After a while, I started coming to sort of this realization that, hey, it may be better for the Titans to keep Calvin Ridley for this reason, because whoever you bring in, you're gonna have to pay money anyway, and he's gonna be an older veteran. If you're not getting an Alec Pierce, it's gonna be an outside guy, or a Romeo Dobbs, then
I don't think Dobbs has signed yet.
Yeah, I don't think he has signed yet. Yeah. So say if you're not going to get a Romeo Dobbs. And what I told you yesterday about Dobbs via text, or I told you this morning, to me, Romeo Dobbs is a younger version of Calvin Ridley with better hands, I believe. I think both of them are really good receivers, but Romeo Dobbs is a little bit more consistent with his catching of the ball than Calvin has been here. But with that being said, I thought Calvin Ridley, when he's healthy, he's good. The problem is him staying healthy. If you can get a healthy season out of him, at least this year, while your quarterback is still growing, and you just brought in another addition to the offense in Wan'Dale Robinson, then I think you keep Calvin Ridley at least for another year. You allow him to be the number one, and it's sort of everybody else will fall into their place. He becomes the number one. Say if they don't go out and get Dobbs or somebody else, then Alec is the two, and Wan'Dale is your slot, and you're trying to figure out what to do with DK.
615-737-1025. By the way, some breaking NFL news. Tua Tagovailoa plans to sign a 1-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons. The move will now give the Falcons 2 left-handed quarterbacks, Tua and Michael Penix. That's strange. But Tua, after being released by the Dolphins today, he is planning to sign with the Atlanta Falcons. 615-737-1025. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us coming up next to break down what the Titans have done so far today in free agency. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. If you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired or better yet, replaced. So call 1-800 Law Tigers or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers powered by Freeman and Fusion, and you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South. And don't forget, go to predatorsbike.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers and Music City Indian. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you. A reminder that our offseason coverage of the Tennessee Titans is presented to you by Tennessee Brewworks. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brewworks, proud partner and official craft beer of the football offseason coverage right here on 1025 The Game. We are efforting to Ron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, and when he joins us, he will be fueled by Parman Energy. Visit parmanenergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. Right before the break, we were mentioning that the Atlanta Falcons are planning to sign Tua Tagovailoa, which gives the Falcons 2 left-handed quarterbacks. Willie, I have to assume this is the first time one team has had 2 left-handed quarterbacks at the same time.
You know what? Since I was a kid, me being left-handed and me being a quarterback in the 7th and the 9th grades in pads and a flag football quarterback for my entire career before that, I keep track of the lefty quarterbacks. I cannot remember a team that had 2. I could be wrong. That's a great trivia question. I'm sure somebody might have had a second or a third stringer on there that never played, but I just cannot think of a significant team. I was trying to think of guys like Mark Brunell and
Michael
Kenny
Vick,
Stabler and Jim
Kenny
Zorn
Stabler.
and Boomer Esiason and
Steve
all the
Young.
lefties, Steve Young.
Yeah.
But I just don't remember anybody that had a backup that was also lefty. That's really interesting. But man, isn't the quarterback market today fascinating? Because with Kyler Murray and Tua being released, they couldn't find a taker for either one of those guys. There's a lot. Just the whole approach to quarterback is evolving in front of our eyes, I think, especially with all the dead money that the Dolphins were willing to pay and then go throw it, some of it, at Malik Willis. Crazy.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Malik Willis signs with the Miami Dolphins, replacing Tua. If I recall off the top of my head, the terms of the contract, 3 years, $67.5 million for Malik Willis. And which Malik Willis will the Miami Dolphins be getting? From ESPN Insights, Willie and Derek, from 2022 to 2023 with the Titans, Willis posted an 11 total QBR, 68 out of 69 quarterbacks with 90-plus dropbacks. From 2024 to 2025 with the Packers, Willis posted an 86 total QBR, best of the 62 quarterbacks with 90-plus dropbacks. It's fascinating to me. Let's hold this thought on Malik Willis because we do have Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter. TD, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. I know you're a busy man today. Thank you for the time. So let's just start generally. Your thoughts on the free agent haul that the Tennessee Titans have made so far today.
Yeah, they addressed a lot of needs. They set themselves up in a pretty good situation going into the draft. Still need to get that center situation figured out, and there's some things that they could do there. But I think overall, they added players that it's very clear they're familiar with, and there's guys that, having executed in a similar system, it takes away the projection to an extent. So I think that was a good thing, and that's kind of like a theme you see in all of this.
We were talking about Wan'Dale Robinson before you came on, Teron, and I know that Robinson primarily has been utilized as a slot receiver, but he did show last season after Malik Neighbors went down with a season-ending injury that he can stretch the field a little bit. His yards per reception was up. His air yards per target was up. Do you anticipate the Titans using him more than just a slot receiver?
I think he'll be primarily a slot receiver. You still have Tim DK, who they got to get some snaps to, and I think he'll get some slot as well as over there at the Z position. So I think it's going to be a mixture, but in my opinion, he's going to be the slot guy. You look, 41% of his 185 receptions, they went for first downs, and a lot of that was working from the slot. So keep that in mind.
You mentioned it, so I'm going to ask you this question. What are the Titans going to do at center? Tyler Linderbaum signed a gigantic deal with the Las Vegas Raiders earlier today. Connor McGovern off the market. Tyler Biadasz off the market. So who could be the next center for the Tennessee Titans?
Well, I mean, I've said this name a few times, and I think you look at Dylan Parham. He played the position now, albeit sparingly, right? He had 2 starts as well as played in another game for the Raiders. But, Aaron not White Cotton, Carmen Basillo, the offensive line coach, he was there with him. And just from what I've gathered, he's a guy that they feel could convert to center. Now, obviously, there might be some concerns, right, with it being a new position, whereas he played mostly guard, specifically left guard, but that is an option. You still have Jackson Slater on the roster, who is a second-year player that could be an option also. And he actually played center pretty well at times during training camp. So those are a couple options.
We'll talk with Teron Davenport. Now, Teron, we talked a lot about the Titans trading away Sweat. And, however people want to sort of put things together, I think ultimately it was a fit. He didn't fit what they were doing. But then they go out and get a John Franklin Myers who seemed to fit exactly what they want to do from that position. How do you think he will upgrade this defensive line?
Oh, he upgrades it tremendously, because there's no question about if the opposing offenses are going to pay for sliding protection to Jeffrey Simmons, and he's a guy that he's gonna beat one-on-ones. So I think having somebody to kind of be a running mate, a Robin to Jeffrey Simmons, Batman, I think is a really good thing, and he's a guy that's one of the better interior pass rushers. I mean, you look at the pressure rates. It's number one is Milton Williams at 12.4. You got Jeffrey Simmons right behind him at 12.0. Quentin Williams at 11.9, and then guess who? John Franklin Myers at 11.8. So having that tandem pushing the pocket from the interior, it helps whatever they do on the outside, whether it's sticking with Jermaine Johnson or drafting, a David Bailey, Ruben Bain Jr., whoever it may be. But it makes that D-line, that front, awfully more dangerous, and that's going to be something to allow you to get that pressure with 4, and drop the guys in coverage who, they signed 2 DBs as well.
Now, they signed Delonte Taylor to a big 3-year deal. Do you expect them to go out and get another cornerback, or do you think now he becomes cornerback number 1?
No, I think he's cornerback number 1, but they did also sign Cordell Flott,
Yes.
who was solid, with the the Giants. I mean, I'm not talking about a shutdown guy, but he was solid for them. So I think you look at that, and between the two, you got some pretty aggressive guys. I think they're good there. They have inside-outside versatility, as does Marcus Harris. So I think they're in good shape. And you got Michael Robinson there, as a reserve that I think will make the roster as the number 4 corner. So the secondary to me is solid.
Teron Davenport is with us. TD, let's talk about the budget here for a second. Let me know if I've got this right. Calvin Ridley has a $1 million roster bonus due later this month, and his salary is $20 million non-guaranteed. Do they have the budget to keep him if they want to? What do you think their thought is right now, what to do with him?
Yeah, I think they have the budget to keep him. And the last we spoke with Mike Berganzi, he said that Ridley is in good shape. He's working his way back, and it's a situation that they're ongoingly taking a look at. But I mean, look, this is year 3 of that 4-year deal that he signed. You mentioned some of the numbers there as far as the salary is and the guaranteed money. I mean, they could release him, and if they did, it just kind of would further deepen their need for a receiver. Even though they went out and signed Wan'Dale Robinson, you still, I think, need a starting Z. And I think Ridley and Chim DK kind of fill that role, right? And I mean, if they release him, you save $13 million, so you do have that there. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to. Kind of the vibe I got was that they're not in a rush to release him, and they don't want to increase the need for a receiver.
I guess the way it's structured, Teron, when you said they could save $13 million, if they need the $13 million, maybe you turn and cut him later. But if they can keep him around and they feel like he's progressing, maybe he stays. I guess the contract gives them some flexibility there.
Yeah, exactly. It does give them some flexibility. And I think, when you look at it, if they the saving is basically the same. It's so if you do a post June 1st release, that it saves you a bit more. You're looking at around like 16, 17 million, but I mean, they have that flexibility to where if they want to do it later, they can, and they'll still come out on top, so to speak.
Another theme that I see here, and maybe you can help us, Teron, with the corners that they signed, but I see a theme of bringing it, and I've seen it happen a lot. The first guy I noticed doing it, and I guess old enough at that point to start paying attention to these things, but Bill Parcells, when he retired from the Giants and then came back to the Patriots, he brought in some of his ex-Giant guys in there to sort of set the culture. I see that a lot with both players that Dable is clearly familiar with, and certainly what Robert Saleh is familiar with here. So that seems to be a theme of today.
Yeah, it is, and that's something I touched on initially. And you look at Daniel Bellinger, right? He's a guy that played in Dable's offense. You look at Wan'Dale Robinson, excelled in Dable's offense. You look at Mitch Trubisky; they were together in 2021 with the Bills. You look at Franklin Myers. This is a guy that played for Robert Saleh. Then you look at Cordell Flott. He played for the Giants last year with Dable as the head coach. So a lot of this, at least the four guys that I initially mentioned, you're taking away some of the projection because like, I've already seen them in this offense, in this defense. I know what they could do in this. So you're not projecting. Okay, this is what we've seen before. So I think that's really something that made these moves and make a lot of sense. I mean, we'll see how everything comes together on paper, but for right now, it looks good for them.
I heard Robert Saleh say more than once, his vision of the backup quarterback is a guy that can come in and win a couple of games and also support the starter. That seems to be what they're looking for and what Mitch Trubisky has been the last few years. What does it mean for Will Levis in your mind?
Yeah, I think it means Will Levis is going to be with a new team. They're not going to keep three quarterbacks, right? And so I think when you look at that, I felt all along that Levis, was going to be dealt, and I think the young man deserves an opportunity elsewhere, and I hope he gets that, and we'll see what happens. I mean, you look at teams like the Rams, the Vikings, I think they come to mind. I think even you look at a team like Arizona, that comes to mind also. I remember Marty Ossenfort was here when Levis was, he had just left. Pardon me, he had just left when they drafted Levis. So you do have that, but at least that's a guy that if they want to have somebody in the future in waiting, while Jacoby Brissett holds it down for the meantime, they could do that.
Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Monday and is fueled by Parman Energy. Visit ParmanEnergy.com, your one-stop petroleum solution. TD, great stuff as always. I know you're busy. We'll talk next week.
All right, for sure. Appreciate you. And hey, check it out. Chicago's home of chicken and waffles. We got a live episode of Talking with TD on this Wednesday, March 11th at 8 p.m. Get there early. The kitchen closes at 9, but we'll be there a little bit after that. So definitely come on through. Check us out. We got MCD and A West, two local artists that'll be performing, and we'll be talking shop. So come on through.
Check it out. Thanks, TD.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
I think that's in our neck of the woods, Willie. That's on Gallatin Avenue in East Nashville.
Almost equidistant.
Nasty.
Almost equidistant between the Vingan and Donick residences.
Yes.
And y'all live on the cool side of town, man.
Yes. Well,
we might have to meet for
obviously,
we're our lunch is in our future, Adam, where we meet in the middle.
yes. Obviously, we live on the cool part of town. Have you seen us, Derek Mason?
Coolest dudes in town.
The coolest dudes in town.
No doubt.
Yes, 615. Stop laughing.
Y'all are killing it now.
Stop laughing. 615. I mean it. 615-737-1025. Let's get your reaction to what the Tennessee Titans have done so far today. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you, talking NFL free agency. The Titans have done a lot. They've spent a lot of money. They've brought in the likes of Wan'Dale Robinson and Alante Taylor and John Franklin Myers and Mitch Trubisky, among others. We want your reaction, 615-737-1025. But before we do that, Derek, I just have to say, I was a little insulted by how hard you laughed when Willie and I were talking about how cool we are.
Because y'all were killing it. Y'all said what y'all had to say, and it was cool. Like, y'all should have left it there. But Willie kept saying, and you know. It's like, y'all are making yourselves uncool now. Because cool people don't have to say they're cool.
But wouldn't that be the coolest thing? Wouldn't that be the coolest thing, though, to be uncool as a dad? And they're both dads. So they're cool dads. So that's uncool.
But they were talking about being cool in the East Nasty world, okay?
That's very true. But
I'm cool.
Yeah, Adam, I'm really believing you right now that you're cool. I really believe it.
Exactly.
I've got 8 tattoos. That's pretty cool, if you ask me. Willie doesn't have any tattoos.
So that doesn't make
I'm the only guy on the east side without a tattoo.
Exactly. Wow, Willie, come on now.
There's still time. There's still time, Willie. You're never too old for your first tattoo.
I want to say something quickly.
Yes.
Because, and this is not about the Titans free agency, it's about Malik Willis.
Yes, let's get back to Malik Willis for a moment.
Because
he signed a 3-year, $67.5 million contract.
Yeah, 40-something of it guaranteed.
With the Miami Dolphins. Keep in mind, Malik Willis has attempted a grand total. Let me pull it back up here. Malik Willis has attempted a grand total over 4 years in the NFL of 155 passes.
Yeah, he has. But this is what I want to say, because I mean, when he was here,
he stunk.
He was bad, and a lot of it was he shouldn't have been playing anyway. Everybody knows he shouldn't have been playing, and they put him in the worst position ever. And he didn't flourish in it. You didn't develop it. You didn't do anything. So much so that, people, he's trash, this and that. And I kept saying, like, listen, he can play it because I've seen worse. I've been in the league. I was in the league 15 years, and best believe I've seen worse. Did I feel he was a starting quarterback? No, but I knew he could perform in the NFL given the opportunity and if they develop him right. That young man went to Green Bay, and he took it upon himself, along with that staff, to develop him into whatever happens from this point on. They developed him into a good enough quarterback that it parlayed him into a huge contract that now he's a starting quarterback. Nobody in this city, I would say 90% of the people in the city didn't think that could ever happen.
I will raise my hand and say I never thought Malik Willis would be where Malik Willis is today when the Titans traded him.
And that's why team, opportunity, surroundings matter in this game, especially with quarterbacks. Regardless of where you take them, if you put them in a good environment, you develop them the right way, they will reach their maximum potential, whatever that is. And Willis may have reached his ceiling. We don't know. But when he was here, they did not develop and nobody want to hear that. Nobody wanted to hear it. What they did to him was malpractice. It was quarterback malpractice because they made him the backup quarterback when he shouldn't have been the backup quarterback. Then they throw him in the game knowing he is not ready to perform.
And Willie, as cool nerds, we're not just nerds, we're cool nerds. What's one thing when we look at data that we always have to be careful about? Small sample sizes.
Yes.
And that's what you have for Malik Willis. So how do you think this experiment is going to go? He's attempted fewer than 200 career passes, and he just signed for 3 years and $67.5 million.
My question has been from the start of this process, when you started seeing reports that Malik Willis was going to get a chance to start for somebody, was it's one thing to do what he did off the bench for the Packers. And I agree with everything that D. Mace is saying. This is a great success story, regardless of how it turns out, because Malik Willis has earned a lot of money, and he's worked hard to get this opportunity. And so he's getting a big pay raise, just like I said the other day with the likes of the Michael McCarron or Kiefer Sherwood, who came to the Predators as minor leaguers, basically trying to just win a job to getting guaranteed money. That's a great success story for the individual. But as far as where it goes from here, here's my question. Let me throw this at you, D. Mace. Is it a bigger gamble for the Dolphins to eat the money and hope that Malik Willis is better than Tua, or would the gamble have been less to just keep Tua?
Oh, wow.
I mean, I think you could argue either side of that.
Yeah, you could. But, again, the theme is what? Bring people in the building that is familiar with the surroundings. So just like the Titans are doing, they're bringing people in the building that are familiar with the surroundings, meaning either played for Saleh or played for Dabo. That's what Miami's doing. They're doing the same exact thing. They're bringing in someone that knows the system, and they can continue to develop it because the development hasn't stopped yet. It's going to continue. Now, how they put together this offense for him, I don't know, but I think it's better that they went out, because at least with Malik Willis, if it doesn't work, okay, in a year or two, you won't have to take the hit. You can kind of get rid of them, pay them the guaranteed money, get rid of them if you want to. The longer you kept Tua, I just thought it was going to be harder and harder to get rid of them. So that whole regime's gone. They're turning over a new leaf. They want to get a lot of people out of there that were with that old regime.
We do have
tons of dead money, record-setting dead money that they're eating. But Adam, here is, and I'm sure we got a lot of reaction on it, but to me, the question is, when you're coming off the bench and the other team hasn't game plan for you, and they haven't schemed for you, will it be different when all the defenses now will look at all the tape on Willis? He's not coming off the bench, where, in other words, the team is preparing for Jordan Love, and Malik Willis comes into the game. That's the circumstances where he put up most of those impressive numbers. Now he's got to do it every day, and the defenses are geared to stop the Dolphins, and they're looking at every little thing that Malik Willis is doing. That will be the question for him. Can he take the next step?
Before we get back to that, some breaking Titans news from Tom Pelissero. The Tennessee Titans are signing center Austin Schlottmann to a one-year deal per source. Austin Schlottmann is 30 years old. He'll be 31 in mid-September, and he arrives here from, who would have guessed it, the New York Giants. I don't know much about Austin Schlottmann, and by much I mean nothing, but the Tennessee Titans reportedly have signed Austin Schlottmann, center, to a one-year deal, according to Tom Pelissero.
Is that the guy, or is that
depth?
A guy?
Is
that's
that
going to be
question.
A guy that they have competing with somebody else? I think that's the question.
That is a good question. Teron has mentioned Dylan Parham from the Las Vegas Raiders. He even said so earlier on X that he is the quote-unquote likely next center for Tennessee. I looked this up on Pro Football Focus, and again, you have to keep in mind I haven't watched any film of Dylan Parham, but he played a grand total, according to Pro Football Focus, of 0 snaps at center last season. All of his snaps came at left guard. That doesn't mean he can't play center, but it's not, I guess, his natural position. So we'll see what happens with the Titans at center after missing out on the big names on the market, specifically Tyler Linderbaum, who became the highest paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history. But back to Malik Willis. One texter says, so if Malik Willis did so bad here with coaching, what does that say for Will Levis?
Listen, it could be the same thing. But we will never know unless he goes somewhere else. That's why I said, listen, he needs to go somewhere else. But I would say, even with saying that, I would say it's different from this standpoint. I think there was a plan for Will Levis. I think there was a plan for him. it just didn't go the way they thought it would go. I'm not sure if there was a plan for Malik Willis. It didn't seem. Correct me if I'm wrong, Willie. It didn't seem like they had a plan for this man.
I think that's a really good point. You chronicled it before, and then I will take it a step further. Whatever plan they had for Malik Willis was scrapped when they brought in Will Levis. And then what did they do? They kept Malik Willis as the backup, and they had Will Levis as the third-string quarterback. And then midway through the season, he became the starting quarterback. So both of those guys, and they could argue that they were jerked around a little bit. There wasn't a clear path, like there, at least with Cam Ward, and this is for better or worse, because we made the argument of whether it's better for a young quarterback to sit, even if it's for half a season, before you take the reins. And instead, they just said from day one, Cam Ward's the guy. He's going to take all the reps as the starter, and he's going to be the guy, ready or not. But they were in very different places with Willis and Levis. And so I'm with you. I think I'm optimistic if I'm Will Levis that, there's hope. These stories give you hope that it's a long journey. And if he continues to get better and goes to the right spot, he could still have a nice career.
Randy on our text line says, Amy doesn't know what she's doing. Under new ownership, I bet the Titans would be a better football team, but that's just me. She won't spend the money on key players we need.
Well, I mean,
who are these players?
Exactly. She went out and, well, I'm not going to say she, but Borgonzi went out, he and Saleh and the team, and they addressed it. They addressed positions of need via free agency. They got them two corners, one that is going to be their number one corner, Alante Taylor, and the other will be a third corner or competing for that other corner spot. Then they went and got a D lineman to pair with Jeffrey Simmons. They went and got a wide receiver. So they are addressing needs that they have, and she has given them the leeway to spend the money.
One texter says, with Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne off the market and the Titans making no running back run, does that mean they are getting Jeremiah Love?
I hope so.
No.
Who's to say?
We were talking about this, our broadcast crew on the bus, coming from the airport over, and I was, talking about some of the things we were reading off, some of the reports. And Max Hurst from our staff actually asked a question. He said, isn't it interesting that the NFL has the draft after free agency and the other sports have the draft before free agency? So I do think that's a dynamic. It does make you wonder what they're thinking for the draft. So I think the texter is correct in speculating that when you do all these things and you fill all these other positions, what does that tell you about how they're going to go about drafting?
Yeah, it may tell you something, or it may not. Now, we did pose the question, what Adam did, I think last week. Can they run it back with Spears and Pollard? Pollard, excuse me. I said Pollard. And it wouldn't be the worst thing, but like I said then, we've already seen that movie. We've seen it 2 years in a row. I don't want a third. I don't want a third year. I want someone new in that backfield, whether it's, Spears and somebody else new or Pollard and somebody else new. I just think they need youth, a guy that can really impact that position. And right now they got two good players, but they need a star player.
Our friend Mike Herndon of PaulKaharski.com says this about Austin Schlottman, the center reportedly signed by the Tennessee Titans. Quote, ideally, this is as a backup, though Schlottman did play well in 4 starts last year. Probably not a great sign for the prospects of Corey Levin returning. Schlottman was essentially the Giants version of Levin. So that may answer your question, Willie. Schlottman may be center depth, not necessarily the starting center, but the Titans still need a starting center.
Yeah, and the contract, a 1-year deal would tell you that there wasn't a huge amount of demand for him. So what about him? And then go bring Corey Levin back, maybe draft somebody in a later round and have a little competition, see what you've got, or is there something else up their sleeve?
615-737-1025.
By the way, is Cushenberry still out there? Has anybody signed him?
I think he is still out
I
there.
believe, by the way, the only former member of the Tennessee Titans who has been signed by another club is Arden Key. Arden Key signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Indianapolis Colts. But Chigakonkwo
is Snead still on the roster?
Snead is still on the roster.
Still on the roster, yes.
Yes. So Arden Key, the only former member of the Titans signed by another team so far. Arden Key signs with the Colts, 2 years, $20 million. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll put the Titans off to the side for just a moment. The SEC men's basketball tournament starts here in Nashville on Wednesday. Vanderbilt wins at Tennessee over the weekend. What do we need to see from the Commodores in the SEC tournament to feel better about them in the NCAA tournament? We'll discuss coming up next. 615-737-1025. But I did say we have a pair of tickets to give away, so that's exactly what we're going to do right now. If you want a pair of tickets to see Nashville SC take on Lionel Messi and Inter Miami at Geodis Park on Wednesday night, be caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. Caller number 3 will win a pair of tickets to see Nashville SC face Lionel Messi and Inter Miami at Geodis Park on Wednesday night. Hard to find those tickets. You can win them now. Caller number 3. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
DVD continues here on 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick here from Seattle. Derek Mason from back in the studio. So, as we mentioned, it's been a very busy day. We have been drinking through the fire hose, as they like to say, with all of the activity around the NFL, and we will get back to that in due time, for sure. We did want to take a moment with the March Madness coming up and the SEC tournament in Nashville coming up to hit a little hoops for a segment here as a little change of pace. And so, Derek, I wasn't on the show on Friday, and you know, I didn't get a chance to set the table with you guys for the significance of Vanderbilt and Tennessee on Saturday. But Vanderbilt won in Knoxville, and this was a really interesting stat that I didn't really know. How about the football team, men's and women's basketball team, all winning in Knoxville? That in the same school year, that's a pretty interesting thing lining up.
Unheard of,
especially when you consider the success of the Lady Vols over a long, long period of time and how few times Vanderbilt football has won in Knoxville, but to have all three in the same, it just is another feather in their cap over there for how much success and how expectations, I think, are changing for what Vanderbilt can do as an athletic department, especially in this new world of NIL, which I think people would have bet the complete opposite about 3 years ago, that in the NIL era, Vanderbilt could have more success and unprecedented success rather than less success, because I just think that there was an assumption that Vanderbilt would not compete.
It's the best thing that happened to him. It's the best thing that happened to him.
It really is. And, you know, in the context of that, I see all these people, Kentucky has got the worst record they've ever had. They've never finished ninth in the SEC. Well, are you paying attention to college sports?
Yes.
At all? It's not the same thing as it was even 5 years ago. It's changing. So times change. Doesn't mean Kentucky's bad. It means it's different. There's more people in the mix. There's way more parity than there was. But let's focus on what Adam said. And by the way, Adam has had to duck out for the rest of the show. He'll be back with us. And so it's an excused absence. Let's say that. It's fatherly duties. Let's say that.
Absolutely.
And these things happen. But Vanderbilt wins in Knoxville. I think that is an enormous boost. Even though I know Nick Ahmed didn't play, that's still a very tough place to win. I think they caught Tennessee on a day where, you know, if Tennessee was hot and hitting everything, just like maybe Kentucky was, as an example, the week before at Rupp. I'm not sure if Vanderbilt wins it, but that's winning on the road against a really good NCAA tournament team. Sometimes you have to have the right things happen. And I think Vanderbilt really got some good confidence out of that win, D-Mace.
Yeah, I think they did, but I'm still worried about them. Again, if they get the right matchups, I think they can go far in the tournament. But if they don't get the right matchup, but what I mean by right matchup, I mean if they play a team with some length, because again, UT dominated the offensive board. It was almost 2-1 offensive rebounds. And because Vandy's not a big team and they got to be very careful because they can get in foul trouble, they're going to be out-rebounded by teams that are longer. I think just because the lack of bodies and fouls that they can give. You know, they can't be as aggressive as they want to, especially late in the games, because what happens every time their big guys are in foul trouble come toward the end of the second half. And they were able to escape. Obviously, it was a good win for them going down to Knoxville. I think they played really well. I think they shot from the outside, from the three-point range. I think they shot really well. They forced UT to shoot horrendously from three-point range. But Vandy is a really good three-point guarding team, and they've been that way the whole year. But I'm just worried, not necessarily about the talent, because Tanner is an all-star. He's showing that he's an all-star. I just don't think they have enough length. And if they go against the wrong team or say the right team, they can find themselves exiting the tournament very early. And that could be an SEC tournament too. If they play one of these long teams first or in the second round. No, they gotta buy the first round, right, Willie?
They got a double bye.
Double bye,
thanks to Florida's win against Kentucky. It was very close. There's basically one game separates you from having to play the first night of the tournament, which everybody in Kentucky is up in arms. Oh, we got to play. They've never had to play on Wednesday. What's going on? It's panic time. Don't panic. Don't panic, Big Blue. I know you'll be all right. It's a tough league. It's a new formula. But Vanderbilt moved up and got a double bye. And one of the first things Mark Byington said after the game was, he said, we have to root for Florida, which we don't really like to do, but because that game was in progress while he was doing the press conference. But he made a point. He says, we need some rest. We need rest. Because I think what it comes down to for me, Derek, is the offensive rebounding thing. It's going to be a thing. They can't get around that. They're just with their personnel. They're not going to all of a sudden. They can't trade for Truck Robinson or whoever you pick your favorite rebounder from from back in the day.
Moses Malone.
Moses Malone. They can't bring in Moses Malone. So they have who they have, and so they have to just battle and do the best that they can. Foul trouble is going to be something they got to deal with from every game they play from here forward. And I'm with you 100% that matchups in the NCAA tournament are going to be a lot. They're going to dictate a lot. Because Tennessee, for example, is the best, based on the KenPom numbers, the best offensive rebounding team in the country, not in the SEC, in the nation. They get the highest percentage of offensive rebounds more than any team. So Tennessee is a rugged, hard-nosed team that is going to hit the boards. Now, their question is going to be, what's the story with Ahmed? Is he going to be healthy for the tournament? They need him. But this is what I liked about Vanderbilt's game. Tennessee is a tough defensive team, and Vanderbilt on the road made shots.
Yeah,
that's encouraging. Tyler Nickel, he didn't shoot that many shots. Like Tennessee did a good job of keeping him from getting looks. But the rest of the guys, like shot clock running down, they make some moves. They make some spins in the lane, fade away 12-footers. Like all year long, when they're cooking, they make shots. Like Duke Miles is a shot maker, right? Those guys made some critical ones at key times in the game. And so I think that's what I'm feeling when I hear Mark Byington say we need rest. I think he wants to see his team reinvigorated and just, have that mojo going where they feel like they're all going to make shots. We talked about it last week, how it becomes contagious a little bit. And hopefully they catch that second win, and that will make them the best version of themselves for the tournament.
Yeah, they need to rest. This is a tired team, especially Tyler Tanner. He had to carry the bulk of the load scoring because Nickel wasn't shooting well from the outside and Duke Miles was injured. And I just think that sort of span wore him down. And if they can get some much needed rest, which they're going to be able to get, it's going to help them moving forward. What do you think of Chandler Bing and Jalen Washington? I think Chandler Bing is coming on. They're going to need Jalen Washington. They're going to need their bench, period. I think they're going to need a little bit more out of Jaden Leverett, the big fella. I don't know how Byington's going to use him moving forward, but they're going to need their bench because right now they can only really go 7 deep. If they can go that 8th man or possibly that 9th man, especially in the tournament, I think it'll help them.
Great point. They went from, to me, at the beginning of the year, of having a roster that looked like they could go 9 or 10 deep, to, like you said, they've pared it down. They're really only using 7, and then Leverett is an 8th that you kind of throw in there if you need them. And I am curious if because it doesn't look like they've increased his minutes. And then Tyler Harris was a guy early in the season that was instant offense off the bench, a guy that can make plays. Mike James is another guy that they were using for a while that I thought gave him a lift for a while, but they're really not using either one of those guys right now. And of course, we know the whole drama with Frankie Collins, and he's gone. So, that's really 3 guys that they were using a lot that they aren't using anymore. And so it makes you more focused, I think, on the foul management, because that's probably the biggest thing that it affects. But they're going to roll with those guys. And so I do think that the matchups report, you mentioned Bing. Byington, he had a great game against Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
You had that unbelievable highlight dunk where he takes it coast to coast, and he went Dr. J. You know, he came right into the camera and smashed it with a huge dunk. He's only 18 years old. That guy is, like you mentioned, Bing in Washington. Jalen Washington is your what we see a lot in college basketball now. He's a seasoned guy who's played a lot of college basketball games. He's a senior. I don't know if it's his 5th year, his 6th year, his 7th year, but he's been around. He's played a lot of games.
He's a senior. That's all we. That's
He's
all
a
we
senior,
know.
right? And you know you know what you're getting from him. He's solid. Bing is a guy that I think in a couple years, if he can start if he can improve his shot, because I think there's potential that he can be a pretty good shooter. It could go either way. Like we see how much better Tyler Tanner is shooting from the outside this year than he was last year. Because he was that guy last year. He was only 18, playing against all these guys, all these teams that have 22, 23-year-old guys. I mean, guys 4 or 5 years older than you sometimes. Bing has got a body.
Yeah.
He looks like he's 21 or 22, but he's really young. So he's just getting into it. I wonder what he's going to look like in a year or two. But he's the guy that I think is a huge X factor. Mm-hmm. If he can play really well, he could make the difference in a game in the tournament here.
Another guy that I think he's going to have to increase his load. And I know Duke Miles was injured, so he's still slowly kind of working himself, through this latter part of the season into the SEC tournament, then March Madness. But he didn't shoot too well in the last game. And he puts himself in positions defensively that he ends up getting calls more times than not. He fouled out against UT, and moving forward, they can't have him fouling out the game, because if he goes out with 3 minutes left in the tournament, it's going to be hard on Vandy. So he has to find a way, or they have to find a way where he can put the pressure on the ball, but not get those fouls, especially, getting quick fouls early in the game.
Agreed. Duke Miles, I think it's like your greatest strength is your greatest weakness on defense. He's a guy that he will go for steals, right? He's active hands. He if you have the ball out, he's going to try to rip it from you. He's going to go for the steals. So he had 4 steals. That's a great thing. And that led to a lot of baskets. I think that, in the first half when Vanderbilt was building the big lead in Knoxville, Tennessee was having trouble hanging on to the ball, and Vanderbilt took full advantage. Not only did they get a bunch of turnovers, but they also turned it into direct, easy baskets, which is the best kind of turnovers. But as you said, there's a price to pay for that, right? Because he gets called for reaches. He puts the other team on the free throw line. He gets himself in foul trouble. So I think, once again, they're going to have to live with the good and the bad. This is what they've got. They're 24-7. They're certainly not perfect, but I'm really curious to see that this is something that was talked about a lot. With that win, does that put Vanderbilt maybe one notch higher to a 4 seed and put Tennessee as a 5? They both have great KenPom ratings. They're side by side. Vanderbilt one notch ahead of them. You watched Lenardi, right? There was a lot of that talk. So maybe the difference will be how each of these teams play here in Nashville during the SEC tournament this week.
He has them. Are they still where they were before? I'm trying to find them. Man.
If you can't find it, it's okay, because it's going to change tomorrow or the next day anyway.
It ended up changing.
It changes by every 30 minutes.
Oh,
basically.
He hasn't made. They're still a 5 seed, but they're in Portland. I thought they may have been a 5 seed somewhere else for a minute, but yeah, they're a 5 seed in Portland still. So
yeah,
how much further can they go up? Maybe a 4 seed
we have this debate every year, D. Mays, and that is, how much does the committee start to put their stuff together? Do they even bother to check, in some cases, how a team's playing in the conference tournament? Sometimes it already feels like they got it locked in, and they make only minor changes for a lot of those teams. But I guess we'll find out on Sunday going forward. So the stage is set. Interesting stuff going on. We'll talk some college hoops this week. When we come back, I'll get a chance to tell everybody kind of my thoughts on the trade deadline for the Predators, and then we'll get back to the NFL free agency frenzy, and it has been a frenzy during the 5 o'clock hour. So you're listening to DVD. 615-737-1025 is our phone or text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So stay tuned. We're coming back in just a moment here on 102.5 The Game. Hey, if you're tired of getting crushed by high interest debt, maybe your mortgage is over 6% these days, maybe credit cards, car loans, 10%, 20%, that is something that you're going to want to get out of. And Loan Pronto has the answer you've been waiting on, the all-in home refi. One fast, easy solution to knock down those rates, lock in the lowest rate in 3 years, wipe out the nasty loans that are killing you every month. One homeowner got their APR down to 4.99%, paid off over 80 grand in high interest loans, and saved over $2,000 a month. Some of these lenders charge up to $10,000 in fees. Loan Pronto's cost is just $995, and you can wipe out your high interest loans all at once. The all-in refi from Loan Pronto. Check it out. Super fast, super cheap. No hard credit pull up front. Often no appraisal. And you can skip your next 2 house payments. Loan Pronto is A+ rated by the BBB with nearly 3,000 5-star Google reviews. Call about the all-new, all-in refi. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781. Visit NMLSconsumeraccess.org. DVD continues here on 102.5 The Game. We'll get back to the NFL free agent frenzy coming up at 5 o'clock. In the meantime, a quick Predators segment as a change of pace. Willie Donick here along with Derek Mason. I'm out in Seattle. The Predators, amazingly, and I say amazingly because they lost the game over the weekend to the Buffalo Sabres, a good game where the Predators, after the trade deadline, were right there with Buffalo. And if you haven't been paying attention, Buffalo just can do no wrong right now. They've won 7 in a row. They've taken over first place in the East, which is incredible. They just can't lose if they try. They won 8-7 yesterday against Tampa Bay. So, all that to be said, Nashville is only 3 points out of the last playoff spot, and who occupies that? Seattle. So the Kraken are the opponent tomorrow night. It's a huge game, and it's a make-or-break road trip. So after Barry Trotz traded 4 players in 3 days and then put the stop sign up, didn't trade anybody else, it's an interesting way that they have gone about this. And so with 19 games left, you wonder what's going on. So, Derek, I'll ask you, because I was basically in the air on Friday as the deadline hit. So what was the reaction to Barry Trotz and what he chose to do and not do on Friday at the deadline?
And correct me if David wasn't here either Friday.
I was not, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think from this standpoint, I think there were people that were upset because they didn't feel that he did enough. They felt, again, I think some people felt some years ago, that are you really going for a rebuild, or what are you doing here? Because everybody wanted, for some reason, and I understand why, everybody wanted O'Reilly to be the guy, him being traded. Everybody knows he was going to garner the most interest and he was going to get back the most, whether it was he or Stamkos, and neither one of those guys were traded. So much so when Barry did his press conference, he spoke of, there were some deals out there for certain guys, but they chose not to take those deals. And I think some of the fans were a little bit upset or sort of like head scratching, because if there were deals out there for certain guys, then, what kind of deals were they? So I think it was a mixed bag as far as how the fan base felt, but we were getting calls it was nonstop and text nonstop. And I think the consensus is that Barry didn't do enough. They felt Barry just didn't do enough.
Well, and I think that they are very fortunate. It's the year in the West where that last spot is going to be taken by somebody who is not a great hockey team. And Barry Trotz is now his message, I think, on Friday at the press conference that came through for me was that he wants the young players who are now going to get a chance to play, as he said, meaningful games in a playoff race where he thinks there will be dividends down the road, even if they don't make it. And I'm talking about the guys who are replacing the 4 players that they traded. So let's start with that. So Michael Bunting, Michael McCarron, Cole Smith, and Nick Blankenburg. They're all going to be replaced by younger players who all along Barry Trotz has been hoping will seize spots in what he calls the next core of the team. So this is the next part of the process. Now let's get to Ryan O'Reilly, because I think on our show, D-Mace, you would agree, right, that for weeks we were saying it's going to be defined going forward on what they choose to do or not do with O'Reilly. True?
Exactly.
Like that's really everything. All these other moves, these 4 moves, I think weaken the team in the short term, but the hope is that in the long term, that these young players, let's take Ryan Ufko, who we haven't really talked a whole lot about because he wasn't a first-round pick. He was a second-rounder. He's been a little bit under the radar, although he was on the USA World Junior team. He's a really good college player. He was Milwaukee's leading scorer. Could eventually Ryan Ufko be better than Nick Blankenburg? Maybe, and maybe not, right? But this is what they are willing to try to find out. Can Reed Schaefer eventually be better than Michael Bunting? Probably not tomorrow against Seattle, But someday, that's what they got to find out. And these are the questions. These are the things they probably kicked around behind the scenes. And so they've accomplished that, right? They have cleared the way for these young players to jump in there. Zach LaRue, of course, is another great example. Could he be better than Cole Smith someday? Well, Cole Smith was an undrafted free agent, overachiever. You know exactly what he's getting. Zach LaRue was a first-round draft pick, a later first-round pick. He's got more skill. He's probably got more upside. He's got more variety to his game. Is he better than Cole Smith today? No. But what can he do with this opportunity?
And then there was the Holla thing where he said there was really good offers for him. And some of the fans were saying, well, why didn't you take it? Things like that. So, again, I think it was I think the fan base, at least that called and texted in, were a little disappointed that, and I know a lot of it hinged on whether O'Reilly was traded or not. But then I posed the question, Willie, and maybe you can answer this as well. What is the difference from them doing it 3 years ago when they did it, when they traded away Matthias Ekholm and all those guys, and then that younger group started to, gel together and they started to play well? What is the difference between that and this? I understand one of them is the guys that they traded are on the last year of their deal, so they were going to be free agents anyway. But even with that, I think with those trades you made in 2023, 22, somewhere around there. Yes, you got rid. Yeah, yes, you got rid of some good players, but you never touched the core of the team. And now the fan base feels you're doing it again. You're not touching the core of the team. You're just nibbling around the edges, which is not going to, in their minds, which is not going to put them any further along in the process of winning a championship than they were before they made the trades.
Well, I definitely want to get to O'Reilly, but because that to me is the central part of this whole thing. But when they did that a few years ago, when John Hines was still the coach and Barry Trotz was just about to take over for David Poile, I would argue that Nino Niederreiter, Mikhail Granlund, Matthias Ekholm, and
much better players.
Throw in Tanner, that was a bigger part of their team back then, and those were major. But these guys that they just traded were 4 guys that were going to hit the free agent market. They're role players, right? They weren't top 6 guys. Blankenberg, McCarron, and Smith were overachievers. They were minor leaguers that the Predators sort of built up to have more value than that they had ever had before in their career. And Bunting has always been kind of the same guy. So I think it's a different category that this year as opposed to a few years ago. And like I said, that last playoff spot this year is more gettable. So it's clearly a compromise between gutting the whole thing and sort of trying to play both sides, get some assets, open things up for younger players, but still kind of keep one foot in the race. And some people might say that is, the middle ground that you want to avoid. Mushy middle is always, I understand that argument. But Eric Holla was one that I think they decided ultimately. Now, there's been a lot of chatter about what happened with Holla, because I think everybody almost assumed he was going to get traded.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, there might have been some stuff going on behind the scenes, but I think ultimately what Barry Trotz said at the press conference was, would you rather have a guy like Zach LaRue, a guy like Joachim Kimmel, who is going to play now a lot? Would you rather have him playing with Eric Holla, or would you rather have him play with a minor league center that you pull up off the waiver wire that you have to throw in there because you don't have enough centers? So I can see that Holla has value of keeping because he's a center. And, maybe they bring him back for another year. I don't know. It's hard to find centers. So trading 2 centers would have been a really hard thing that you have to make up for. But let's get to O'Reilly, speaking of centers. To me, this is the key question. And I saw Joe Rexroad's grade of D in the Athletic, and I understand his argument very well. And he makes the central point of this. He doesn't have a no movement clause. There's no such thing as a verbal no movement clause. Well, maybe Joe and maybe others, maybe Adam, because I think Adam made this argument on the show. can look a guy in the eye and say, all right, Derek, you don't have a no movement clause, but I have a ton of respect for you. You are a special guy, a special culture creator, to use Joe's term, culture setter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a verbal no trade clause. I'm going to run everything by you first. This has been wide open, out in the open for over a year, right? We know this. Maybe they could turn around and then trade him anyway. I can't do that, right? My word, if I give you my word that I'm going to do that, I'm going to follow through. Mm-hmm. Now, Joe or Adam could come back to me and say, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that, right? But the fact is he did. And that was well over a year ago. Mm-hmm. So either you have to be cutthroat and undercut a guy and go back on your word, which I couldn't do, or you have to play it out the way it did. And what Barry Trotz said is that nothing came his way that was so big that he had to go to Ryan O'Reilly and say, you know what, Ryan, I hope you're good with this because I really like this deal. So I don't know what the best deal was behind the scenes for O'Reilly, but I understand that once you go down that road, there is such a thing as a verbal no movement clause if you give somebody their word.
Well, he could be also, and we talked about this, that this could be something that he, allows the next GM to take care of. You don't have to, you can still get something for him. It may not be, his value is at its highest right now, but that doesn't mean you can't trade him, in the off season. But I think that's something that if I'm Barry and I've given my word, I will allow the next GM to decide that, because it's not like O'Reilly is not playing extremely well. He's kept this thing together and he's playing extremely well. So I'm going to let the next GM handle that. If they choose to trade you away, okay. If they choose to keep you, I'm good with it.
There also weren't that many big trades around the league. It wasn't like all these other teams were getting this huge haul for players. Maybe O'Reilly would have gotten more than a Nazem Kadri or some other guys, but I would never bet against Ryan O'Reilly. I've said all along there is huge value in keeping him, and next year is the last year of his contract. He is going to be at a fraction of the cost that players of his caliber are at. I do think they could get an excellent return on him next year if they were back in this position. And at that point, as you said, Derek, they're going to have a new GM. He won't have the verbal no movement, and he's in the final year. I think Ryan O'Reilly would fully understand if that's the case and they didn't want to bring him back. But I would think that you keep him going into next year and you see what your team looks like. Let's see how these young guys do. So that's all the time we have for that today. We'll get back to it, I'm sure, tomorrow before the Kraken game. But I do think it's an interesting way that they did go about it. In retrospect, my one thing that I wish they would have done, I think because I just watched the team go through such indecision and turmoil, especially right before the Columbus game, which was such a big game, that in retrospect, if Barry Trotz could do it over again, and maybe this wasn't practical, but if he could have waited until Friday, I think you could make the argument that the 4 guys he traded could have been traded on Friday after you assessed everything. The loss, maybe you win in Columbus. And then, of course, they shocked Boston on Thursday. But you could have made it then and then decided to go one way or the other. But instead, they sabotaged themselves a little bit for a game on Tuesday because of the way it went down. Then they recover and win on Thursday, and they find themselves still right there after all of this. They're only 1 point further out than they were before the Olympic break or right after the Olympic break, after they beat Chicago. So it's crazy how this has gone down. So we'll see what chapter is next in this novel. When we come back, we'll get back to the NFL free agency craziness. The Titans have been very busy on the market. We'll go back through some of the moves that they've made, and we'll get D. Mace's assessment of it. Stay tuned. You're listening to the DVD. You're on 102.5 The Game. DVD, the 5 o'clock hour. Willie Donick from Seattle, where it is only 3 o'clock. The day is young.
Yes,
Out
very
here in
young.
the Pacific Northwest. The breeze is blowing. It's partly sunny. It's not raining. So I'm excited about that. Predators and Kraken tomorrow night in a big game. Nashville 3 points behind the Kraken for the last playoff spot with
They
19
need
games
this.
to go. They play 2 against the Kraken head-to-head before the season's over. They play 3 against the San Jose Sharks before the season is over. And they play 2 against the Kings. They also go to Edmonton on this road trip and to Winnipeg, who's suddenly still not completely out of this thing. So it is going to be a crazy race. Somebody's got to grab the last wild card spot. But in the meantime, we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios. That's where Derek is, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. David James is back in the studio as well. Adam Vingan had to bolt a little bit early today, but it is a huge day in the NFL. The signings have gone crazy, even though it's not official for a little more time, but the genie's out of the bottle, right? All these guys, we know where they're going. Tons of signings today. It was a nutty thing to watch the ticker today, just to watch all of the Adam Schefter reports and where he was going, particularly at quarterback. But let's focus on the Titans, D-Mace. For people just joining the show, we hit this hard in our first hour, but the Titans were very busy. They made a bunch of signings. And so we're going to go through them one by one here. They signed Wan'Dale Robinson, a wide receiver formerly with the Giants, who played for Brian Daboll there. 4 years, $78 million, $38 guaranteed. They also signed an ex-Robert Saleh. You're going to get the theme here. A defensive lineman, John Franklin Myers, who we talked about on our show a couple of weeks ago. And sure enough, $42 million guaranteed. Big money for John Franklin Myers, who played for the Jets when Saleh was the coach, then went to the Broncos and did very well as part of their committee there. That was a great defense that Franklin Myers was a part of, so he's getting paid. And they also picked up 2 corners, Cordell Flott and Alante Taylor. Flott, 3 years, $45 million, $32 million guaranteed. Taylor, 3 years, $60 million, according to Adam Schefter. And then there was some other deals as well with Mitch Trubisky signing a 2-year deal as the backup quarterback for Cam Ward. So,
and
let's
Daniel
go back
Bellinger, tight end.
the tight end. And I'll be honest, I'd never heard of that guy before. He got a lot more money than people thought he was.
He's a New York guy. I think Daboll drafted him. I believe. I know he played at least 2 or 3 years with Daboll, but I think Daboll drafted him when he was there. Or, I think he may have drafted him while he was there. So, but don't you know the Titans have spent, just with those contracts, because we don't know what the number is on Mitch Trubisky. They re-signed Morgan Cox. Congratulations, right. Morgan. They re-signed him to a 1-year deal. That's good for him. He gets to spend another
long snapper, best gig in sports.
Exactly, absolutely. And he's a great guy. I knew him, played with him in Baltimore, and they re-signed him here. So hopefully he can retire Titan. But without the Mitch Trubisky contract or the Morgan Cox number, they've spent well over $270 million on contracts right now. That's just the totality of the contracts. Ooh, man.
What did they spend 2 years ago? Remember when they got Ridley and all those guys? They spent a ton of money that year.
Yes.
I feel like this is more. But I feel like they got better players this time, but time will tell on that. But so let's go through them and get your assessment, because I think a lot of people are curious about how you see what they spent for Wan'Dale Robinson, because I think we talked about how he would fit the familiarity with Daboll, but now that he's here, what are you thinking?
I think it just depends on how you use him. I'm sure they will use him in sort of the same fashion that they used him in New York. He will be the third down underneath guy, slot guy, sort of the chain mover. He's not a big yak guy. He's not a guy that's going to consistently, beat you down the field. And he doesn't, it's not like he's breaking a bunch, breaking a bunch of tackles, which means yak yardage. He's one of those guys that just catches the ball really well and he moves the chains. He's quick in and out of his breaks. He plays well within an offense that he was in when he was with the Giants, and it's going to be the same offense. They're going to design a lot for him to get him open, because those are what we consider easy throws for Cam Ward. A lot of Waddell Robinson's targets were, not as far as the ball in the air. It wasn't like he was a down the field threat. The ball was in the air, maybe 6-7 yards, if that. So he's one of those guys that you find a matchup, put him in a bunch, motion him, do a lot of different things with him, get the ball in his hands, and just allow him to continue to move the chains. He's going to be big for the Titans when it comes to third down.
He's only 25. He's coming off his best season. Malik Neighbors getting hurt during the season probably upgraded his importance. And so I wonder what that did for his development. So he's a relatively young free agent who actually had a pretty serious injury his first season in the league, but he looks like he has continued to improve. Does he look like a guy, Derek, you think could even be better as he gets older? Because, sometimes you get these guys. Calvin Ridley, for example, I think he might have been 30 by the time he actually caught a ball for the Titans.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much better he's going to get. And he's a good player. I think he may have, his ceiling is what it is now. He's not, because what we got to try to project here is, because Adam brought this up. He has the same amount of target in the last 2 years, but the number of yardage was an upgrade. Why?
Yeah, big
upgrade. Because why am I forgetting the receiver's name now?
Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors wasn't there, so a bulk of the targets went to him. How will it be now that he's here with a fully healthy Calvin Ridley? Assuming they're going to keep Calvin Ridley, do we still expect those numbers to be 1,000 yards, 90 something? You see what I'm saying? I'm not sure you're going to get 1,000 yards with him. If that's what people are looking for, like he was 1,000-yard receiver, he's going to be 1,000 yards and continue. He may, but if I'm just looking at, how his career has gone, is he truly a consistently 1,000-yard receiver? And that's what is that what you're signing him for? You're going to get some production out of him, but are you going to get the same production that you got out of him that New York got out of him last year?
I have the mentality with these free agents that if you are basing your expectations on what they are paying him, I think you're going to be disappointed because you have to overpay to get these guys. So I don't think he's going to become a different player. It is interesting. He led all wide receivers with 622 yards out of the slot last year. So, and we talked to TD about this. I think we project him as a guy that's going to play mostly out of the slot. But I'm tempering my expectations of what we're going to see from him. The question is he going to be what they hope he will be within that offense? Which brings us to Ridley. And so, Derek, I don't know if I had this mentally in the back of my head before free agency, because I was just thinking they were going to move on from Ridley at some point. It didn't happen. He's still on the books. He's got a $1 million roster bonus due on March 17th. His contract is $20 million non-guaranteed. So they could cut him and save some money. But after this spending spree, I wonder if they look around at the books and say, we got enough money. We need wide receivers. Maybe we like how he's progressing from what we hear. Maybe let's run him out there again for lack of a better option.
When the season first ended, I thought that, because of the injury, that, okay, Calvin Ridley's out of here. Not so much because I don't think he could be, productive and highly productive in his offense. It's just that he was getting injured. And each time he would get injured. So it was like, man, how long are they going to wait for him, especially with a new head coach? How long are they going to wait for him to not be injured and give them a full season? But then as the things started to go, I started to wonder, like, it may just be better to keep Calvin Ridley, let him come back healthy, sign you another receiver, and just allow Cam Ward to continue to build that rapport with the guys that he had there. And it's looking more and more like they would rather keep Calvin Ridley, add to the receiving core, rather than getting rid of him and then trying to go replace him with another guy that you're going to try to make your number one. I just think this offense, if they want to, go out and be the best offense that they can be, I think keeping Calvin Ridley would help that. Again, I think he has the trust of the quarterback. He's going to have to know the offense just like everybody else, but I think he's still that veteran because he's a good presence in the locker room as well. And I don't think you can't overvalue that, especially in the situation that the Titans are in. This receiving core is young. Even with Wan'Dale Robinson, they're still a young group. You need a veteran guy like Calvin Ridley in the mix. I just hope he can stay healthy.
Yeah, so this will be something to watch because they do have the option of paying him that roster bonus, which is only $1 million.
Yeah, I think
and then they could hang and see what they want to do in the draft, see who's out there. Who knows if they go that way in the draft, but they could decide later in the summer to cut him if they want. So that's something to watch. So we'll table that for now. Derek, I want to get your thoughts now on the defensive line with Franklin Myers. So you have Franklin Myers and Jermaine Johnson, who they traded for Tavondre Sweat. So you got two guys that Robert Saleh knows how to use, knows exactly what he's going to give them. You've got Jeffrey Simmons, and you've got the option, probably, of adding a weapon to that front four. So I'm wondering what their vision is, now that they've gone this route, and now you've signed two corners. What's your expectation level for the defense after seeing this?
They're going to get pressure, man. You have two of the top 5 pressure getters at that interior position in the NFL. Both of these guys were ranked high. I think Jeff was, as far as pressure rate, Jeff was 3rd or 2nd, and John Franklin Myers was 4th, somewhere around there. So you got two guys that can get to the passer in the top 5 as far as their pressure rate. That alone should upgrade your defense if he continues to play that way. And it fits what you've been preaching. Fast, all gas, no brake, guys that can run sideline to sideline, the guys that have high motors. Well, the guys that he's adding, they have high motors. These are guys that can go sideline to sideline. These are guys that can put pressure on the quarterback, and not necessarily get the sacks, but pressure brings errant throws. Pressure brings rush throws. Then they go out and they get two corners. One, Alante Taylor, who's a number 1 corner, and Flott, who's paid like a number 2 corner. So you've upgraded your corner position. You've upgraded your D line to get more pressure. So this defense should look much different than what they did last year as far as getting pressure on a quarterback.
I'm really curious because I'm always a little skeptical when you go out and spend all this money that you've fixed the problems. It sounds great. Here we are on March the 9th, because on paper, it does look like a really big upgrade, but only the future will tell us if you could see it. But I like the plan. I mean, these are guys that in a lot of cases they're very familiar with, so they know the fit in the system. So that brings us to a question I think we've had a lot on our text line today, and that is, would you use the 4th pick? Let's say they don't trade down, and if they do, maybe this is still the question. But would you use the weapon for, say, Jeremiah Love to give that weapon to Cam Ward in the backfield, or do you get that edge rusher you could put next to Big Jeff, and also, these acquisitions, the ex-Jets, and have Franklin Myers, Johnson, Simmons, and the beast on the outside that you could get with the top of the draft? Which is the way to go?
I mean, you can go either way if you want. I mean, I'm not sure if one gets you there faster than the other. But what I will say, if you are a offense that, still developing into what you want to be, I think having a really good defense helps you because it allows you to stay on the pace that you want to stay on. You don't have to speed things up because the defense is giving up 25 points a game. So you figure you got to score 26, 27, 28. That sort of speeds up the process of development. But when you can have a defense that isn't giving up, 20 points, maybe they're middle of the road defense, they're giving up, 17 points per game, 16 points per game. That's better for your offense that's young and growing, because now we don't have to be in this shootout, every game. We can run the football. We can do some of the things that helps us and that has helped their quarterback even last year with the play action. So it's going to be interesting to see what else they do from an offensive standpoint in free agency. I know they will probably nibble around the edges, getting guys that can, be depth pieces. But I wonder, outside of Wan'Dale Robinson, are they going to make another sort of big signing? We say the center should be that next big signing, but we don't know what's, if there's a center out there that commands that type of money. But what is going to be the next sort of big signing they do on offense? If they don't make another big signing, they choose to nibble around the edges, that makes me sort of think that they're probably thinking offense with that first pick rather than defense.
They did make a minor move to sign a center, a one-year deal that was for an ex-Giant. I forget his name off the top of my head.
But he's a guard / center.
Yeah.
So.
They looked at it as like a Corey Levin kind of guy. So he may not be the guy that they plan to start at center. Maybe he's in the mix to compete there. All right, when we come back, we'll get Derek's take on the Mitch Trubisky signing, what it means for Will Levis. What does Trubisky bring to the table? We'll also look around the league at some of the zaniness that has happened. Kyler Murray, cut. Tua, cut. Malik Willis has a starter's job. Was this smart by the Dolphins? You got a lot of things going on. And so we will hit those because it's been a crazy day around the league. You're listening to DVD here on 102.5 The Game. I'm loving the Run DMC theme that we're hearing today. I know if you listen to our station, you know that we had a little flavor earlier. Who was it? DMC that was on the show the other day, Derek?
Yes. Absolutely. It's a
I,
good
like
segment.
many people from our generation, Derek had the Raisin Hell tape.
Oh, absolutely.
For me, I'm dating myself. The tape pre-CD.
Yeah, David.
I'm sorry, I am hip. I don't know about these cassettes. I just know about DVDs.
After the show, we'll have a talk about a cassette. What a cassette is, and how you fix a cassette, D-Base, because if sometimes it flips, right, and it's twisted around, you got to get very carefully pull it out.
That may take you hours to do.
Yes, but and you might have to consult the expert. But somebody in your neighborhood knew how to fix those things, as long as it didn't break. And even if it broke,
you could tape it up.
Scotch tape out.
Put some Scotch tape on it.
Yes, you have to be careful with these things. A big time investment. You pay the $7.99 for the cassette album there. But we're talking NFL free agency here on DVD 102.5 The Game. It has been a really busy day, and around the league, wow, the quarterback thing was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, D-Mace, let's start with the Dolphins, because I think that's probably the most intriguing story of the day. The cutting of Tua, they couldn't clearly they could not find a take, or they were not willing to throw in an extra draft pick, as we speculated, for somebody to take the contract. So they just said, you know what, we got a big appetite, we're going to eat the money, and we don't care that we have to pay him a record-setting amount of dead cap money. And they turn around and they sign Malik Willis. Very intriguing move by the Dolphins.
Yeah, it was, but I think everybody saw this coming. That one, Tua, if they couldn't move him, which, they would have had to, give somebody something to even take him and that contract. No one was going to do that, because they knew that you were going to eventually have to release him, and then they could pick him up and sign him to a 1-year deal like the Atlanta Falcons did, and only paying him, a fraction of what the contract is, which means Miami has to pay the rest of the contract, the 30-something million dollars. I don't know how much Atlanta's paying, but whatever they're paying them, the rest will be paid by Miami. So I think everybody understood that they were moving away from that, away from Tua. And I don't think it was so much of they didn't believe he can play the position. He's just gotten hurt so many times, and those concussions, I think it has changed him as a player. And I think Miami saw that, and they were trying to move on, and they have. Now, them signing Malik Willis, I think it's familiarity. They like his development. The same coach was in Green Bay, so he's watched Malik develop, and he probably believes that he can develop even more, and they're going to get him there. But they signed a deal that, frankly, it's a big deal for Malik Willis, considering the stuff he had to go through and everything else. So he worked himself up to a huge deal, but in a big scheme of things, I think is a contract that it won't be on the books very long if he doesn't play well.
So now Tua gets picked up by the Falcons, which gives them two lefties, and we've racked our brain. I have not done the research, but I can't think of another team that's had two lefty quarterbacks.
Left-handed quarterbacks, man.
But at the same time, what do you think the Falcons envision of who to start? Do you think Michael Penix will be the guy they want to start, or do you think they want to resurrect Tua? I guess because Miami is footing the bill, and Tua is going to get paid basically from the Dolphins, that they're not on the hook for a whole lot, so they can do whatever they want to with Tua.
Yeah, they can. I have no idea. I'm sure they want Penix to be their guy, because listen, they drafted him very high. Did they move up to get Penix, or they took him at the 9th spot somewhere? He was a top 10 pick, I know.
I think they took him at the 9th.
Yeah, they took him at the 9th spot. So when they had already had a quarterback in Kirk Cousins. So I think more than anything, they want this to work out for Michael Penix, because it's a high draft pick. But I think if it doesn't, at least they have someone with the experience, someone that has been. And I still believe that Tua is a good quarterback. You just got to protect him, because if you don't protect him, I think he's going to eventually just go in a shell, because he's going to get hit so much, and he's taking too much as it is. So I think this was one of those deals where if it works, great. If it doesn't, then, they're going to be in the position to draft a quarterback next year. But I do hope it works out for Michael Penix, but he's dealing with injury. Tua's dealing with, concussions and hasn't been the player he was prior to the concussion. So if they can get anything out of any of them, I think it'd be a plus.
So they have two chances for one lefty to work out.
Exactly.
I'd be curious about this. If Penix takes the job and does well, and Tua is playing at a bargain price, I'm wondering what kind of trade chip Tua could be, even if he only plays a game or two, or maybe he doesn't even play at all. But if he's sitting on somebody's roster and he doesn't have any further issues, either by virtue of just not playing, or maybe he goes in, plays a game, looks good. I wonder if a desperate team, we know how desperate a team always ends up to find a quarterback. I wonder ultimately what the Falcons can do with Tua. But I wonder if they can deal him somewhere.
I think that would be unless, Arizona, which they went and got Minshew. They signed Minshew to I think a 1-year deal. And they still have is Jacoby Brissett still there too? I think he's still there. They may be positioning themselves for a top pick next year. But team like Arizona or another team that's sort of in this quarterback dilemma, sort of kind of speak, they can wait until the trade deadline. And say if your quarterback goes down, they can trade away Tua, because again, no one has to worry about the money. That's the thing with Tua. No one has to worry about paying him the money, because Miami has to pay whatever you're not paying.
Brissett is still on the Cardinals roster, so he's watched them cut Murray. Mm-hmm. There was some speculation that they might go after Malik Willis, but this could be a problem for Jacoby Brissett, because he does the commercials for the insurance company where they bring in the backup. So if he's the starter, he may not be able to have a future gig as the guy in the commercial. It'll just be Teddy Bridgewater. That's my favorite one.
Like, dude,
Teddy
you're starter now.
The listener, the official listener, the relationship guy, where he's sitting there going, I mean, he's awesome at that.
Oh man.
What? Okay, so speaking of backups,
yes,
Mitch Trubisky goes to the Titans. What are your thoughts on the fit there, and what does it mean for Will Levis?
I think you get a capable backup, a guy that can start a few games if you need him to start. Again, this is not somebody you're putting on your team or you're signing to your team hoping he can play 17 games, because that's not the case. You hope he can't play any games, or choose not, or don't have to put him in any games. Let me say that. But if you do have to put him in the game, you can win with him. And you got a guy that isn't a threat to your starting quarterback. This sort of reminds me, again, it's crazy how this sort of parallel is going. For Steve McNair, they went out and they signed Neil O'Donnell. Neil O'Donnell was no threat. Neil understood what his role would be coming in, and he went out there, practiced hard. He helped me as a player. I'm glad we did sign Neil back. I'm glad we did sign Neil as a free agent, because he helped me out a lot as a player in practice. But you're getting a guy that has played in a lot of games. Now, Neil's career was a little bit different because he had a little bit more success than Mitchell Trubisky. I think both of them went to a Super Bowl, but I think as a whole, Neil had better success. But I think the job right now is the same as it was for Neil back then. Come in, be a really good backup, be there if our quarterback gets hurt, be a good teammate, be a good locker room guy, another veteran in the locker room. And when your opportunity comes to play, we hope it doesn't, but if it does, then go out and win games. And that's what Neil did. And they're believing that's what Mitch Trubisky can do. They don't want to have him out there for 5, 6, 7 games. But if he has to, come in for 2 or 3, they believe he can, go out and win at least 2 of the 3 rather than having Will Levis on the roster. And then giving Will Levis another opportunity. I think they just understood he wasn't going to get an opportunity here. And I do believe that he at least deserves an opportunity to get a chance to be a starting quarterback in this league. And if he gets it and it happens for him, great. If he doesn't, then at least he got that opportunity.
All right, here's one I have to ask you about that we haven't. I don't think we've discussed today, unless you guys hit it the very top of the show. Mike Evans to the 49ers on a 3-year deal. What do you think they get out of him?
I didn't think he would leave Tampa. Man, goodness, they let him get out of there. Well, I mean, what I think San Fran gets is a veteran, a reliable, meaning catching the football. He's missed some games this year, and he's missed some games in the past with a hamstring and everything else. So he's getting older. How much of a factor is he going to be for you throughout the 17 games? Now, if he can stay healthy, then you still got a 1,000-yard receiver. But the big caveat is if he can stay healthy,
Yes.
I think he brings leadership. He brings he's a tone setter out there. He's physical and he can make all the catches. So I think they got them a hell of a receiver. The thing is that he's getting older and he's been injured. So you don't know if he's going to continue to have these injuries.
That's going to be tough. So Evans goes to the 49ers. Rashid Shaheed is going to stay with the Seahawks. 3 years, $51 million. They gave him $34.7 guaranteed. And of course, earlier today, Alec Pierce staying with the Colts. So all those things together would, at least for now, at least in my mind, would lead you to believe that that would increase the chances that Calvin Ridley is going to stay with the Titans. True?
Yeah, because again, if you just think about it from how do you help your quarterback continue his development? Well, you don't trade away his number one guy when there's nobody else out there to go get to replace that number one guy, especially a veteran guy. So you didn't want to go down. You didn't want to pay Alec Pierce the money, and the coach wasn't going to let him out the building. All these other receivers, I'm not sure you bringing them in would upgrade the position that much in regards to, okay, if you remove Calvin Ridley and put said receiver in that space, how much better would the offense be? The guys that were out there, it's not going to be any better. It's really not. Whether it would be Alec Pierce, whether it's Stephon Diggs, it doesn't matter. Whatever number one guy you go get now that's available, he's not going to upgrade your offense that much. It would be like having Romeo Doubs. That would be like having a younger version of Calvin Ridley, but with better hands, but a younger version. He does some of the same things that Calvin Ridley does. He can get down the field. He can be that dynamic receiver at times. Well, if that's the case, you already got somebody there that can be that and it's doing that. He just needs to stay on the field. So I'm not surprised.
It also, I think, shows with the money that these guys are getting. Pierce got a ton.
Yeah.
Shaheed got a lot. And obviously Robinson, who the Titans did sign, is getting a lot. 38 guaranteed, I think is right. So the market has changed, right? It took a lot more money to get Robinson than maybe I thought it would, but it's because everybody's got more money to spend. So stuff is a little bit out of whack on what you're budgeting. I don't know if they had the money to do Robinson and somebody like Pierce. So now they're just going to have to make do with the guy. But they certainly did find plenty of money to spend than the Titans. And on that, we'll take a break and come back and wrap things up. We'll get some reaction if you've got some. Just your thoughts on the whole day. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Final segment of the show coming up next. We'll read your texts, and we'll also hit another couple of big notes from over the weekend. It's been a busy show. We're coming back after this on DVD.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. If you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. But Law Tigers fights to get you the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Look, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will help you get it all repaired or better yet replaced. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Houston. You can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Street South in Nashville. And remember, go to predators.com to enter to win a custom Nashville Predator Indian motorcycle signed by the entire team, courtesy of Law Tigers in Music City, Indian. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
Kane is in the building.
Final segment of DVD here on 102.5 The Game. Billy Donick, Derek Mason here with you. Adam Bingen had to leave a little bit early today, but he put in a good solid 6 innings of work. We're going to give him the win on the show today. If we can finish this thing off, we're trying to get the save. So let's hear what you have to think of, or have to say, or if you want to send your thoughts via text at 615-737-1025. You can always do that, or call us on our phone or text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So certainly a big day with a lot to absorb. I made the reference of drinking water through the fire hose. That's what it feels like with all these stories going on around the NFL. And there's still plenty of guys that we have to figure out what is going to happen with. Meanwhile, a huge week ahead at the SEC tournament in Nashville, with a lot of teams coming in trying to either make sure they get into the NCAA tournament or try to get their seed up a notch or two. And Derek, one of the weirdest things that I think I saw all weekend, just studying the bubble like we always like to do on this show.
Mhm.
Let's take Auburn, right? Auburn's lost a lot of games. And Auburn fans, they've been spoiled because they've been so good the last 5 or 6 years. Bruce Pearl has had them humming. They're clearly down a notch under Stephen Pearl, and they've played a very difficult schedule. But their one-loss record does not look like an NCAA team. It's got to feel like torture to Auburn fans, but yet they still have a chance to get in because the bubble is so weak. I saw a stat over the weekend that I think there were 9 teams that Joe Lunardi had as either the last 4 in, first 4 out, or the next 4 out, and they went a combined 0-9.
Oh,
like
wow.
nobody won. It was weird. Like
nobody
wanted to win. Does anybody want to get to the NCAA tournament? It was crazy. But I think you might have some of that theme in Nashville this week, and Auburn clearly is going to have to win a couple of games.
Of course, they're going to have to win. There are other teams because and we talked about this with the SEC. It's probably not as strong as it was last year, but I think it's one of those things. It sort of evened itself out. I think last year you had your top dogs and everybody knew who they were. This year, outside of Florida, I mean, any team could have won the SEC regular season title, and any team can win the SEC tournament based upon what I've seen from the SEC throughout the season. For instance, Missouri and Alabama this weekend, that was a good game. And Missouri had been on the roll. They came and they beat Vanderbilt, and they end up losing to Alabama this weekend. And Alabama's a good team. So you got Alabama, you got Arkansas, teams like that they can go on a run, and it's not just about Florida. It's about those other teams too. UT is another one. Once Amick comes back, this is a team that can go on a run. So it may not be as top heavy as it was last year, but it's evened out, which to me makes it stronger.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of teams. I think it will make for a wide open SEC tournament. I think you could make the case that 6 or 7 teams might be able to win it, although Florida really does look like they have separated themselves. As number one, they're a defending champ, but even though they've got so many new guys, they have gotten better as the season's gone along. I saw Joe Lunardi actually has moved them up to the 1 line. So if you had to pick a team to beat, I think for sure they're the favorite. Now, we need to make sure we shout out another great story that's a little bit under the radar, and that is Tennessee State going to the NCAA tournament. Now, when I first started in talk radio, and this is a long time ago, D. Mace, one of the great friends of the show, when I say the show, I was George Plaster, Joe Biddle. They had a great show going before I ever joined it, but I was a rookie coming in. And Tennessee State had some great teams under Frankie Allen, who was just a great guy to bring on the radio. Just a fun personality. He loved talking all sports, not just his team, but he talked basketball, he talked baseball. He just loved coming on and just, he could be a guest, and it wasn't even basketball season. So they had back-to-back years. They had a guy named Carlos Rogers. I think I got that name right. I'm pretty sure. Carlos Rogers, a big centerman, played in the NBA for a while, and he really carried them to 2 straight OVC titles. They haven't been back since. And Nolan Smith, in his first year under TSU, gets them to the tournament. That's an awesome story.
Yeah, it is. I'm wondering who they're going to have them matched up against. It's always good to, obviously we talk a lot about Vandy and UT, but when you can have a team like TSU finally get into the tournament after so many years, I think it's a great story. And depending on, who that matchup is against, man, I mean, I know you guys talked about them and Duke going up against one another.
Well, okay, so
that could be a 1 in 15.
Oh, okay. I'm looking at Joe Lunardi's bracketology right now, which of course changes every hour. Tennessee State 15 versus 2. Michigan State. There you go. Now that would be a matchup for you.
Yes, it would be a matchup. Obviously, I'm pulling for my Spartans. We can't let another, Tennessee team because we let Middle Tennessee
harkening
beat
back
us.
to
Exactly.
2016.
We can't let
Middle
then
Tennessee.
now Tennessee State beat us. So, but he's doing Nolan Smith is doing a great job there with TSU, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we hear their name in the field. 60, what is it, 8 now?
Yes.
So yeah, 68. The field of 868. So I'm sure we this would not be the last time we hear their name. But unfortunately, Coach, if you got to go up against my Spartans, it's going to be a long day for y'all, man.
You know what? I thought for a minute there yesterday, D-Mace, Michigan State might have a chance to beat Michigan, but boy, you have to bring it,
Man,
and you have no margin for error
listen.
against Michigan. I'm not a huge fan of them. You're certainly not a huge fan of them,
Listen,
but they are good.
That team, and I despise anything University of Michigan, anything, badminton, cornhole. If you got a team, I don't like it. But this Michigan team, they are good and they are big. They put in that big unit, and Michigan State couldn't get a rebound toward the end of the game. I'm like, man, that is going to be an exciting team to watch, because as good as they are, you just never know which matchup a team like that can run up against. And with all the talent that Michigan have, all the length that Michigan has, if a team is shooting really good from the outside, man, it's going to make it tough. But I hate to say it, but that Michigan team is damn good, man. I think we'll beat them. I think we'll beat them a third time if we got to play them. But man, oh man, it's going to be a hard challenge.
Michigan State played, I thought, great for about 37 minutes.
Toward the end of the game,
they just
gave it up.
Quite. I mean, yeah, it just couldn't quite hang in there. Too many big plays.
Yes.
Michigan's got so many weapons.
They got too many rebounds. They were killing them on the rebound on the offensive boards. Man.
Congratulations to the local product, Tyler Tanner, first team All-SEC as a sophomore. So well-deserved honor for him. So Vanderbilt gets the double bye. We talked about them some earlier in the show. And so we might see Vanderbilt, Tennessee for a third time on that first game that Vanderbilt plays. Vanderbilt is waiting to see who Tennessee plays the night before, but Tennessee would be one win, a game that I think, we'll see how Amen is, but you would figure if things go according to chalk, which it never does, you could see Vanderbilt, Tennessee, in Nashville. That would be fun.
Yeah, it would be for a third time.
And it might be for a 4 seed when it's all said and done. We'll see.
A brawl for it all. You get it? 4? 4 seed. No, I think it'll be a good matchup once again. The two matchups that we've seen, I thought they've been competitive matchups. Obviously, I would have liked to have seen, this game play with Amen, but it wasn't. And, Vandy did what they needed to do and pulled out a victory.
Well, the stage is set. Everybody take a deep breath after all of this huge activity. The Titans have got a bunch of new faces that they are going to sign. It's all agreed to. It's not official, but it will be. So the Titans have a new look. We'll be digesting that all week. We'll take in the great championship week. And do yourself a favor. Watch some of these championship games from the smaller leagues. They are awesome games to watch. That's coming up tonight. We'll keep an eye on it. Tennessee State is already in. We'll be watching the SEC tournament. And, of course, the Predators are out here in Seattle where I am. A big do-or-die game tomorrow night, in my opinion, against the Kraken. A big, as they say, a 4-point game. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. In the meantime, we're out of here. So stay tuned. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Be loved. Love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow, 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.